He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Hello, I'm Simon Morris. In the last year or so, the distinction between accuracy and entertaining in storytelling has become rather more noticeable. Time was a film or TV show could get away with phrases like based on real-life events or inspired by something that actually happened. Now there's a tendency towards the less confident true-ish. It's sort of true, but not so true that anyone can be sued over it, surely to goodness.
It must have affected her that my book was reviewed as better than hers.
I'm sorry, who's hurt?
Miller.
She was diagnosed with cancer.
So she's consistently maintained. I have no reason to doubt her.
Because in her case, it's true.
Now it's more about getting away with something rather than offering information and insight into historical events. "Were you there?" sneered Sir Ridley Scott famously. Well then, shut up. Though you don't have to be 200 years old to know that the Empress Josephine was rather older, plainer and less scrupulously bathed than Vanessa Kirby in Scott's movie version of Napoleon.
I let the French victory get too long.
What is your name?
Napoleon.
As the course of my life just changed. Napoleon.
It does beg the question, though, when tackling a fascinating true-life event, why do filmmakers keep on fiddling with the facts? Isn't the main appeal of an historical movie its historical accuracy? But of course, that's never been the case.
Well, you're not going to use the story, Mr. Scott?
No, sir. This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
This doesn't stop people making films that purport to tell true stories, just tweaked a bit to make them more interesting. Curiously, in such stories, it's the least likely parts that often turn out to be true. Well, that's because real life obeys its own rules and doesn't have to be part of a recognisable story.
Burn the body, get rid of it. And keep an eye on everyone, see what they do. Report back to me when, I don't know, when it makes sense.
To counter this, filmmakers often find themselves turning a true story into a true-ish story, or even one that's barely true at all. They're not trying to mislead anyone exactly. They're just trying to tidy up random bits of reality.
200 people in that room, and each one wants me to be somebody else.
How do you sing then?
I put myself in another place. But I'm a stranger there.
Motivations are made a bit more, shall we say, plausible. Why can't two of the characters fall in love, say, or have parental issues, or simply be goodies and baddies? Do these events have to go on for years? Can't they happen over a weekend? And can't the hero or heroine be a bit more, I don't know, heroic?
Longshanks desires peace.
He declares it to me, I swear it.
You tell your king, William Wallace will not be ruled, nor will any Scot while I live.
Before you know it, what actually happened is buried under a pile of convenient movie shortcuts until it's neither factual fish nor fictional fowl. Were you there? Sadly, no.
We put the camera in the right place, and we follow the story as it unfolds in real time. News can tell us what it all meant after it's over, and I'm sure they're going to try. But this is our story, and we're keeping it.
This week, 3 fact-based films that go to some trouble to get reasonably close to what may have really happened. There's the story of the Queen of Champagne, the widow Clicquot, and there's a real-life hunt by the FBI for a splinter group of homegrown terrorists called the Order.
War's begun.
You're drawing too much attention.
From who?
The FBI. I've warned you before. You are playing with fire.
But first, a film about a well-known story when Arab terrorists invaded the German Olympics. But September 5 is more interested in how we learned that story.
What do I tell the cameras?
What do you mean?
I mean, can we show someone being shot on live television?
We're on. The peace of what have been called the Serene Olympics was shattered this morning.
September 5 takes on, you'd think, well-covered territory. The tragic events of the Munich Olympics of 1972, when a dozen Israeli athletes and coaches were held hostage by a group of terrorists calling themselves Black September. The events and their aftermath were the basis of Steven Spielberg's 2005 thriller, Munich.
Commandos have automatic weapons on the hostages. A deal had been made. Now the Israelis disappeared. Massive security forcing in front of it. The Arabs would like
But September 5 has a different focus. It's how the hostage drama was covered on television, live as it happened, by people who seem to have no business doing it. ABC's sports team.
Nobody knows yet what is happening here, so we have to be very careful about everything we say on air. No offense, guys, but your sports, you're in way over your head. News should take over.
Well, the advantage a sports OB crew had over professional journalists was they were there. They had all the facilities of a major live event, including multiple crews covering various sports events from all angles. Now they had to pivot from sports drama to the real thing. And as far as head of ABC Sports, Rune Arledge, was concerned, there was no difference.
Okay, look, I know this isn't a responsibility that everyone wants. But does it make more sense to have a talking head from news take over from halfway across the world? Our job is to tell the stories of these individuals whose lives are at stake 100 yards away.
As played brilliantly by Peter Sarsgaard, Arledge sees his job as simply following the story minute by minute wherever it may lead. And all the pressure is suddenly on one of the most junior people in the control room, the overnight director, Jeff Mason, played by John Magaro.
And we're clear. Great job, everyone.
Do you hear that?
Were those gunshots?
The overnight crew is very much the B team. Their job is keeping the seat warm until daytime and the big important sports events. But when shots are clearly heard, all that changes. Jeff and his boss, Marvin Bader, Ben Chaplin is the conscience of the film, find themselves on a war footing.
What's the situation?
The police are reporting that armed terrorists have attacked the Israeli athletes.
There's a hostage situation going on right now in the Olympic Village.
Worldwide television coverage was still in its infancy. The moon landing, the first big live global event, was a mere 3 years before. And September 5 shows just how primitive this early technology was.
We have a jam on cam 1. Cam 2 has a live shot of the balcony. Tower cam is an aerial view of the entire Olympic Village and can zoom in. And we got 60mm footage on tape machines 3 through 6.
For anyone who wasn't around television in the early 70s, the then state-of-the-art may look like early Doctor Who. Jeff Mason had access to a mere handful of cameras, some welded to the spot. Much of the coverage was coming from film cameras, whose 16mm footage was rushed back to the studio to be developed on the fly and then chopped up before going on air.
It's 50 and a 250.
All right. 4 fresh rolls, 50 daylight.
Okay.
All the action of September 5 takes place in the ABC facility, the crowded control room, the small studio where frontman Jim McKay, in actual historic footage, anchors the events, the editing suite down the corridor and so on. And like everyone at the time, we get our information from what shows on their screens and what's relayed by reporters on the ground, American and German.
Our job is to tell the story of these individuals whose lives are at stake.
It's not okay. We made it worse.
It's a madhouse down here.
Which is where the fourth major character is all-important, one of the few Germans in the control room, journalist and translator Marianne, played by Leonie Benesch. Not only is she one of the few people who can tell what's going on, but she's all too aware of the historical significance.
You need to understand how sensitive this situation is.
These are just local cops doing things they have never done before.
The German authorities were extremely anxious to eradicate the memory of the previous Munich Olympics, Hitler's fascist 1936 version. which was why, fatally, the German army was forbidden to go anywhere near the Olympic Village, and the job of dealing with the terrorists was left to the hopelessly underprepared local police.
We'll make it broadcast history. More people have seen this than watch Armstrong land on the moon.
Now, police are on the roof.
Whoa, guys.
That's a TV.
The German point of view of writer Moritz Binder and director Tim Fellbaum gives September 5 an unexpected perspective, and so does the realisation that we're watching the birth of something all too familiar. Round-the-clock, 24-hour-a-day news coverage was born this day.
Are they seeing what we're seeing?
What are you talking about?
Are the terrorists seeing this?
But above all, September 5 is just a terrific suspenseful thriller. There are people doing the best they can to bring an important story to the world and wrestling with the moral dilemmas involved for the first time. History is being made here in more ways than one. It's 90 minutes on the edge of your seat.
They know the whole world is watching. If they shoot someone on live television, whose story is that? Is it ours or is it theirs?
The problem with a film called Widow Clicquot is surely encapsulated in its title. We're aware that Veuve Clicquot, as the French put it, is a famous champagne, and it's hardly a surprise when vineyard owner Francois Clicquot takes a wife, a woman whose name is a bit of a mouthful, Barbe Nicole Ponsardin.
Welcome to the vineyards of Versy. The most beautiful in all of Champagne. Oh, darling. I think we might have found the secret to perfect happiness.
Hayley Bennett, who plays Madame Clicquot, is the prime mover behind the film as both star and producer. Francois is played by the slightly exotic Tom Sturridge, who I remember playing Lord Byron once rather well. But no sooner is Francois established when he suddenly dies.
I am hopelessly, unequivocally yours.
Francois willed the vines to me because he knew I would never sell. I would be continuing to care for them myself.
This is a shock to both Madame, but also to the rest of us, since Francois was set up as the most colourful character in the film. He was not only a swashbuckling lover of his good lady wife, but he had novel and daring techniques that he hoped to inflict on his champagne company.
These fields do not need replanting or starting over again.
I disagree. They need to struggle to survive. I want our champagne to have structure, depth.
Well, have no fear. Francois returns early and often in flashbacks, which not only underscore the deep romantic love between him and the widow Clicquot, but also drive her own interest in the family business. She has no interest in selling up, either to her father-in-law Philippe or the sexist neighbour Monsieur Moet.
Wine is a very difficult vocation, my dear. You underestimate what it will require of you.
I know what it requires. I've been in the fields for years.
You have one chance. One.
Yes, that Moet, though sadly no sign of his no doubt equally obnoxious partner Monsieur Chandon. But La Veuve Clicquot, spurred on by her late husband in flashbacks, is determined to become the first and greatest female entrepreneur in Napoleonic France.
I do admire you trying to run things as you want, as a woman would.
If we lose these first shoots to frost, we lose the harvest.
No one can fall asleep.
Incidentally, Napoleon makes his presence felt several times in Widow Clicquot, first as a lawmaker. His celebrated Napoleonic Code forbids nearly all women from running anything. But you notice I say nearly all women.
A woman is not capable of running this vineyard.
When I have proceeds, I will send them to you.
A woman is forbidden to run a business under the law. Her vineyard should be placed in the hands of an experienced executor.
Is this the plan all along?
No, madame. It never occurred to them you would succeed.
There's a loophole that allows a widow to maintain her late husband's business. And the widow Clicquot takes full advantage of this to the frustration of her avaricious neighbours, because she turns out to be rather a better business manager than they are.
So many obstacles ahead, so much at stake. But there is hope, however unpredictable.
Your instincts have always been so good Why won't you listen to yourself now?
I don't want to.
Well, having outflanked Napoleon in the legal department, Madame is once again confronted by the Emperor when he declares war on the rest of Europe. He sets up a strict embargo against any exports overseas, meaning to any country that can afford a few cases of Veuve Clicquot.
No one can sell abroad due to Napoleon's embargoes against his enemies.
I want to stay ahead of him.
Of Napoleon? So you're a criminal at heart?
But with the aid of another good-looking collaborator, wine merchant Louis, Madame clearly has a type. She dodges the Emperor once again. Louis clearly has his eye on her, but there's an obvious obstacle to true love, her widow status, which, if you remember, is the only thing keeping her in business.
Human beings are compelled to create, to lay down our lives, however best we can.
Which will triumph, l'amour or le champagne? If you've seen a picture of the real-life Barbe Nicole Clicquot, who seems rather a tough cookie, you can probably guess which way she went. As I say, the one thing wrong with Widow Clicquot is the title. It sums up the whole plot in 2 words.
It is so that we might uncover the secrets of ourselves. And that with any luck, 100 years from now, someone will know that we were here.
The Order, based on a best-selling book about domestic terrorists, has had a slightly patchy career since it was picked up by an Australian director, Justin Kurzel, and English star producer Jude Law. It played in competition at the Venice Film Festival, no less, before ending up being distributed on the slightly less distinguished Prime Video streamer.
Sheriff Laughlin, Terry Husk. I had a question about some flyers I keep seeing. White power. Is that the Aryan Nation?
One reason for its demotion might be its unlikely casting. Jude Law plays a burnt-out FBI agent sent to cool his heels in small-town Idaho in the early 80s. Well, even odder casting is the Order's chief villain, the hillbilly cult leader Bob Matthews, played by the forever boyish English actor Nicholas Hoult.
You know, in every revolution, someone has to fire the first shot.
Open the safe now! Now! Let's go!
Both Holt and Law are perfectly good actors. It's just that these are parts possibly better suited to the likes of Billy Bob Thornton and Kevin Costner. But another reason for the Order's fall from grace is that right-wing conspiracy nuts aren't the go-to movie villains they used to be. In fact, some might say they're almost mainstream in parts of the States these days.
We don't advocate any of our members breaking any laws.
But some do.
Well, you must understand that. Being in a cult like the federal government.
But back in 1983, people like Matthews' Order were a seriously worrying phenomenon, particularly when they expanded their activities from hand-printed racist flyers to violent armed robbery. This new order is clearly building a serious war chest.
Come on!
Take him now.
Get out of your den!
How much they get?
Let's go!
3.6 million.
What does that buy? Buys an army.
FBI agent Terry Husk is assisted by eager young deputy Jamie Bowen, played by eager young Ty Sheridan. And while I'm prepared to believe that FBI burnout Terry and Bible Belt dropout Bob may be based on real-life people, I suspect Jamie may have been invented for story reasons.
All bomb squad units, you are to respond ASAP. 1409 3rd Street, Embassy Theater. There's no report yet of numbers.
We're en route.
Copy that. Thank
They're not there. It's a distraction.
He's too nice. He regularly stops the action to show us pictures of his pretty wife and cute child. He keeps talking about his plans once this case is solved. Let me say, if I were an insurance agent, I wouldn't be signing Jamie up for a life policy anytime soon.
You know those pamphlets you saw? It's not all. This was in June. A bomb went off at a synagogue in Boise. That's just the beginning.
Beginning of what?
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Realising he's up against a fully armed cult of some sort, FBI burnout Terry ropes in the assistance of another stock character in a film like this, hard-boiled but sympathetic FBI officer Joanne Carney.
Why'd you call me about this case?
I need your help. Pay groups don't rob banks.
Go, go, go!
Now, I'm not familiar with actress Jurnee Smollett's work, but I read she's recently picked up the coveted Critics' Choice Super Award for Best Actress in a TV Horror Series. Anyway, Terry and Joanne soon realise that this new hate group is inspired by two books. There's the Bible, of course, and another more insidious book, the notorious Turner Diaries.
This book holds our birthright.
It tells the story of a group of white separatists raging a race war against the United States government.
If the story of doomed policeman Jamie Bowen is too obvious and predictable to be true, then the Turner Diaries is frankly too nuts not to be true. Most self-respecting homegrown terrorists of the time, from Oklahoma to Waco, had it on their reading lists.
Does terrorist group yours have a name?
In the book, they're called The Order.
Defeat. Victory. Defeat. Victory. Defeat. Victory.
The regular arrival of groups like The Order, one that even the wildly racist Aryan Nation rejected out of hand, may not be a particularly unusual one in the States, but right now it's one with lessons for both sides of the political divide. If you don't know what drives people like Bob Matthews, how are you going to stop them?
You're not from here, huh?
You following me?
Good morning, my brothers. We want you to join us on a mission, putting words into action.
Will you stand up and fight to survive?
But a film like The Order, for all its good intentions, is unlikely to make much of a dent in the American psyche. By adopting an FBI true crime approach with good-looking British movie stars and Hollywood cop-out plot tweaks, the film only grips you as long as it's in front of you. Perhaps Prime Video always was the right place for it. And at the end of an entire show of true-ish tales, it's time to go. I'm Simon Morris, and I hope you'll join me at the movies, same time next week.